I work in hospitality, a very popular chain company here at the UK. I won't mention the name, but I can honestly say, it's the best job I've ever had. I didn't think I would enjoy a job so much, especially working the night shifts. When I was being interviewed, everything was sounding amazing until they mentioned I would be working completely alone. I have to admit that made my heart skip a beat and I almost refused the job. But honestly, accepting the job was the best thing I ever did, and being there for nearly 2 years has proven that. I still can't believe I work there. The staff are amazing, the guests are 99.9% pleasant, and overall I'm very happy. But of course, where there's good, there is bad. Sure, I've dealt with awkward guests who came back drunk after a night out. I even had to kick out a few guests because they were being way too loud and disturbing other guests sleeping. So it's not all sunshine and roses, I admit, but that doesn't put me off my job. Until one night where a guest made me question that very thing. It happened a few weeks ago. I arrived at my normal time to take over from evening staff. The duty manager that was working took me to one side and gave me the rundown on what happened to her and the staff that evening during dinner service. According to her, the 2 guests, a man and a woman, who was staying in room 1 was acting very strange. Apparently they stepped out to have a cigarette, but the guy was disturbing the guest who was eating dinner by slamming his entire body against the windows that looked into the restaurant, shouting profanities, and making rude hand gestures. He then disappeared for a few minutes, then came back with a fire extinguisher that he got from our bin shed. Whilst all this was happening, the duty manager stepped out and gave him a warning and told him if they disturb any more guests or attempt to destroy the hotel property again, they'll be out. Apparently the guy made some empty, threatening remarks, then disappeared back into his room with his lady friend. The duty manager assured me that it's highly doubtful that the strange couple will come out of their room for the rest of the night and that everything should be okay. Oh, how wrong she was. After the duty manager and front of house staff left at around 11:15 p.m., I locked the doors and grabbed my panic button, something that the manager insists us night shift workers wear as a precaution, and although I never had to use it, I'm very glad I wore it that night. I knuckled down and got on with my duties, cleaning, setting up continental breakfast, emptying rubbish bags, counting the till, restocking juices and defrosting pancakes, crumpets and muffins. Little but necessary jobs. At around 1:30 a.m., I just finished mopping and getting ready to sit down to take a little break with some snacks and scroll through my phone in the restaurant area. I was just about to take a bite when all of a sudden I heard the hotel door open. It was the couple from room 1, making their way outside to have another cigarette. Going by what the duty manager told me about the guy, I didn't feel safe at all being alone in the open. So I gathered all my things and made my way to the office where I could lock myself in and keep an eye on them on the CCTV monitor. Some time went by, and the lady made her way back in, and she did not look well. She was walking so slowly, like she was in pain, swaying while she walked, stopping every few steps. But she managed to get back into her room from what I can see on the monitors. The guy, however, was not at all in a rush to go back to the room. He made his way back in the hotel with his key card and decided he was going to explore the restaurant area. Okay, nothing alarming. At first I thought he was looking for me, and I almost opened the door to let him know I was there, until I looked up at the monitor and there he was standing on a table and dancing. Now I know that doesn't sound at all threatening, but you have to admit, very strange behavior. So instead of opening the door, I decided to observe him for a while, and for the next hour or so, his behavior went from strange to damn right disturbing. As I said, he started off by just dancing on a table, then danced around the restaurant area, then made his way to the lobby area where he decided to stand very still like a statue, then a few seconds later, move position, then stand still again. Again, not very threatening. In fact, I was giggling a little just watching him doing whatever the heck he was doing. But the worst was yet to come. At around 2:45 a.m., the guy was still acting strange. He was constantly going in and out of the hotel, dancing some more and jumping around. Then he decided it would be a good idea to take the condiment tray, take a seat on the chair behind the desk, and start drinking the ketchup and brown sauce. Okay, now his behavior has gone from strange to a bit concerning. I was not about to open the office and tell him he needs to stop what he's doing and go back to his room. Being a lone female worker, I wasn't about to put myself in any danger, but I wasn't in enough danger to call anybody, so again, I just watched him. As time went on, his behavior slowly went from concerning to disgusting. Around 3:25 a.m., after he finished drinking the condiments, He got up and took his shirt off and wiped away the sauce that was around his mouth. He then draped his shirt over the desk chair, walked around a little bit until he came to a complete stop, and slowly turned his head towards the office door. Now I'm scared. The way he slowly walked towards the office door, the way he made direct eye contact at the camera as if to say, "I know you're in there watching me." He pressed his body against the office door and started kissing it whilst making direct eye contact with the camera. He then started putting his hand down his shorts, and yes, he was doing exactly what you're thinking. I felt sick. My whole body broke into a kind of frozen mode, like I couldn't believe what I was looking at, but I knew I had to do something and fast. So I pressed my panic button and called the police. I wanted him gone. Time was passing fast and pretty soon breakfast service would be starting, and I didn't want any other guests to be in danger. As I was on the phone with the police, I spoke in a kind of whisper talk, so the guy right outside the door couldn't hear me. I told the dispatcher everything, and of course they sent a call out for officers to come to the hotel to see the situation. It was just before 4 a.m. when the police officers arrived, and the guy was still in the lobby area but not doing what he was doing before. Instead, in a very dramatic way, he went down on his knees and yelled, "Not me, not me." I made my way out of the office feeling safer that the police were there, and whilst he was still on his knees with his hands above his head, I told one officer everything that I told dispatch. The officers tried to communicate with him that him and his lady friend needs to leave the premises. There was a language barrier. I think the guy was Eastern European. He kept saying, "Not me," or "I no go." One officer asked to be let into his room to check on the lady friend. As soon as I opened the door, we were hit with the most foulest of smells ever. It smelt like urine and feces, bottle of beer scattered everywhere, hard drugs on the bedroom desk. The lady friend was sat up naked on the bed that was drenched with urine and alcohol. I never seen anything like it. After much arguing and a lot more police officers arriving with a riot van, the guy was arrested and was put into the back of the van. A relative arrived just before 6:15 a.m. to collect the lady. They couldn't be more apologetic, trying to explain to me that both of them had mental issues and have been missing for days. I tried to be understanding, I really did. But after what I saw, at that moment, I just wanted them gone. By 6:45 a.m., the police and the couple were gone, and the day manager arrived. I told them everything and showed them what had happened on the CCTV. They gave me a big hug and praised me for how I treated the situation, but all I wanted to do was go home and take a long hot shower and go to bed. I was exhausted. It's been a few weeks and I was told the guy was charged for indecent exposure and the lady is staying with a relative. I really do hope that both of them get the help they desperately need. As for me, I'm still working there. I'm not about to let one major incident make me leave a job I love. But what it has taught me is to always, always trust your gut. If I didn't run to the office when I did, God knows what would have happened to me. I'm a male nurse and I had been working in a hospital nearby. It was a long commute and extremely unbearable. Once I finished my contract with the hospital, which was a year, I decided to apply for another job. One that was a little less stressful and disorganized as the hospital. I got a job at a child psychiatric unit. Working with children with mental illnesses seemed like a really cool job. Maybe cool isn't even the right word, but meaningful. The hospital left me with this feeling of trying to save people who were going to die anyway. But with these kids, I could make a real difference that might turn their life around, or find a way to let them cope with whatever is wrong with them. I was all around excited about it. The pay was even higher, which had me really excited too. The only problem was that the only shift available was night shift. The hiring manager told me that there might be a day shift position available within a couple of months, and I would be the first one to get it if it opened up. But that was about it. So there I was helping kids. At night. The only problem was that they were all asleep for the most part. The only time I got to do anything was when one of them woke up or started misbehaving. This very quickly became the most boring job I've ever worked in my life. About a month went by when something moderately frightening happened. It was a night like any other. I was sitting at my desk charting some stuff I'd done with the kids earlier that night. I heard a noise that I did not quite recognize at first. It sounded like some of the kids were wrestling or something, but on the bed. I got really anxious as I did not want to go in there and see the mentally handicapped kids having sex. Call me cynical, but that's where my mind went immediately. But when I got in there, I saw something that I don't think I can ever unsee. I turned the light on to see one of the older kids who was trying to smother another one. The kid that was doing the smothering had no previous incident of violent behavior. I didn't personally know these kids well enough because I didn't work during the day, but I knew their cases well enough that the kid doing the smothering had bipolar disorder. It was pretty severe, but he had never had a violent outburst like this. It was just so unusual. I immediately pulled him off the other kid and then he started fighting me. He reached around his own head and punched me in the nose at a weird angle. This kid had to have been 11 or 12 years old, and I was honestly surprised at how much force he had behind his punch. He didn't break my nose or anything, but he definitely bloodied it up. My adrenaline kicked in after that, and I was able to restrain him without a problem. I called for a nurse from another unit in the building to come over and help me. It felt like it was forever waiting for this other nurse, but she got over within a few minutes. The entire time I was waiting, though, I couldn't help but to look at this little kid who had nearly murdered another kid. When the other nurse got over, we gave him some medication that would knock him out and put him to sleep. I asked the other nurse, Carla, what I was supposed to do. She was there for a few years before me, and I assumed she would have a good answer. We just did everything you can do. Violent outbursts don't get kids thrown out of here. I was a little shocked. I argued with her a little, but that was that. I tried talking to the kid that was being smothered, and he didn't have a whole lot to say about it. He said that he didn't really know the other kid that well, but they never had a negative incident up until this night. This was a few years back now, and I cannot ever forget how I almost watched that kid die. If I had been just a few minutes later, he probably would be dead right now. It wasn't long after that experience that I started looking for another job. I got one a few weeks later and did my best to explain the situation to my case manager. She didn't seem to understand or care, but that's not my problem anymore. I am a 19-year-old female college student. I work part-time at a grocery store, and at the time that this event happened, I was doing a closing shift, 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. The first 2 hours were pretty normal and went without any trouble. Around 9 p.m. the store was pretty dead, so my manager told me to close my register and gave me a cart full of returns to do. I was halfway done with the cart and was on my way to put back some toilet paper back. Some quick information about the layout of the store. The registers are all very close, and there are 2 entrances at both sides of the registers. The cleaning supplies, pet food, and frozen aisles are located to the far left, where there are no entrances and you can't see anything from the registers. It's the perfect place to take out your phone and text your friends without getting caught by the managers. Anyway, the toilet paper was at the end and I headed there but made a quick stop to put some body wash 2 aisles before the toilet paper. I felt someone walking behind me, so I turned around and saw a tall black man behind me. He just looked at me while I put the body wash on the shelf. I didn't think anything of it at first because I thought he was just waiting for me to move out of the way so he could browse through the body wash. I quickly finished putting them back and headed to the next aisle with my cart. I didn't look back, but I could feel him walking behind me. I proceeded to turn to the next aisle to finally put back the toilet paper, and after I did, I turned around and he was just staring at me. I politely asked him if he needed any help, and he shook his head and said, "No, I was just following you because you're very beautiful. Do you have a boyfriend?" I was kind of creeped out and I didn't have a boyfriend, but something told me to say yes, so I said, "Thank you, but I do have a boyfriend." He stopped smiling and then asked me if my relationship was serious, and I said yes. He then just said, "Well, I'll see you around," and he turned around and left. I was really freaked out and asked my manager if I could take my break because I didn't want to be doing returns while the guy was still in the store. So 15 minutes passed and I went back down. I looked around and thought the man had left. My manager sent me back to my register because we had a couple lines. Around 11:30 p.m. I look up and see the man walking towards the registers. I try to hide and usher a woman with 2 full carts to come to my lane, and she does. I look up again and lock eyes with the guy. He proceeds to hurry to my line, and he only had 3 items, so the lady with the 2 carts lets him go in front. I greet him since it's part of my job and my manager was around, and I ask him for his rewards card, and I scan his things. His total was around $12, and when he opened his wallet I saw that he had a couple 20s, 10s, and some 100s. Normally people would give me a 20, since it's the closest to his total, but he pulls out 100 and gives it to me while winking. I give him his change and he just looks at my name tag and says, "Good night, beautiful." Once I see him leave, I let out a deep breath and keep on with my job. So at 12, I turn my till in, say goodnight to my manager, and head out to my car. I am generally a paranoid person, so I lock my doors as soon as I am inside the car. I turn it on and wait for it to warm up since it was cold outside. I look at my phone, and out of nowhere I decide to look up, and when I do, I see the same guy jogging towards me. He was halfway through, and I immediately back up and start heading out of the parking lot. He then runs back to his car and starts following me. I stop at the light right as I exit the parking lot, and he gets extremely close to my car. I couldn't even see his headlights. I then start driving and make a wrong turn to see if he was following me. He proceeds to make the same 5 turns as me, and I am convinced that he was following me. I decide to go back to the main road, and he follows. As soon as I am back on the main road, I try to think of what to do. I call my mom, and I am with her on the phone almost crying, and then I see red and blue lights behind me. I pull to the side and see a cop car behind me. I roll down my window, and the cop proceeds to tell me that I was driving without lights on. I was in such a rush to get out of that parking lot that I forgot to turn on the lights of my car. He asks for my license and registration and goes to his car to check them. I see the same guy that was following me drive past me and park about 25 meters in front of me. The cop then comes back and gives me my things and just tells me to turn on my lights and be more careful. He then asks if I am okay, and I tell him that the car in front has been following me since I got out of work. He then tells me that he will take the license plate of the car, and then told me to speed up a little above the speed limit, and that if the car matches my speed, he will stop him. The cop then gives me his number to call him and let him know when I arrived home. I did what he told me, and the car also followed at the same speed, so the cop stops him, and I continue driving home. I get home and quickly get inside my house and put the alarm on. I call the cop and let him know that I arrived safely. He then lets me know that he gave a ticket to the guy and that he will keep tabs on him for a while. I thank him, and I haven't seen the guy again or received any information from the police.